All right, friends. Today's episode is going to be, just really eye-opening. I want you to learn things. You're probably going to need something to take some notes. But before we get started, I want to ask you a question. What does it take to go from surviving your life to actually designing your life and thriving? And that's what my guest, Sun Yong Kim-Manzolini, who's the CEO of Lush Enterprises LLC, did in her life. And now she's paying it forward so that others can learn her unique miracle system to learn how to trade options so that they can spend less time working and more time doing the important things like us moms, we could be spending it with our families. And you have such an interesting story that after retiring from a $35,000 a year job in just 2015 with no money in your checking or savings, and it was too early to access your retirement accounts, you threw yourself into options trading and quickly surpassed your goal of 178,000, 6 times your income in the first year. You believe true freedom is the ability to be who you want and do what you want without fear and intimidation, to live out your dreams with financial security and dedicated to guiding people towards long-term success. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Angela. I'm great to be here. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you for your listeners. And boy, the journey that I've gone through has so many lessons in so many different parts that I've learned, and I'm still learning. That we'll never stop learning, right?
We
So
never stop learning. You're
that's
so
right.
right about that. And I think that really just leaves yourself open to continually improving in life.
Yes.
But you really started in a humble place, right? You
Hmm.
started in a place where so many people would rightfully just allow it to keep them small in life. And you really seem to have used it to give you strength, perspective, and somehow find capacity for more. So tell us about that.
Yes. We just never know how our outcome is going to be or future looks like until I don't know, like you try the things that people tell you to do, and then you're in it, and then you're like, wait a minute, I think I need to be more of who I am.
Mm.
And so, where I grew up in South Korea, and as an orphan, I lived in two different orphanages. And after my mother passed away, my dad basically left me and my sister, and we found ourselves in an orphanage. My sister kind of was working there because she was a little bit older than me. And then out of the blue, I don't know, sometimes I'm a mother and, this is a mother to entrepreneur. And, we see things that the kids sometimes don't see right through. So I remember sitting in an orphanage where my sister and we both were there. And I remember looking out the window, just, the window was like full from the floor to, big long windows, looking out and just saying, oh, I wish I could just get up and just go play with my friends out there, just looking out the window, wishing for that. And I don't know if she saw me wishing or she noticed something like that. All of a sudden, one day out of the blue, she just showed me a picture of this another place. And she says, do you want to go to this place? And I'm like, no. And she says, but you must go. And I said, why? Why do I need to go? And she says, this is the place where they're going to teach you how to walk. See, I didn't know how to walk. I was just basically not crawling, but just scooting myself with my butt and my right hands on my right knee. That's how I scoop myself to get around. So anyway, so when she asked me, she says, you need to go here. I'll take you there. And I said, no, not unless you and I are going to both go there. I'm not going to be separating from you. I already got, our dad is gone. We lost our mom. Only person that I have is, so I was about five, probably 4 or 5 years old. And I keep saying, no, 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 no. And she says, yes, I have to take you there. Anyway, to make a long story short, she took me there to a second orphanage to another city. And my eyes were wide open when I got in there. Like, the person that worked there agreed with us. And I was shocked in my life. I have never seen so many handicapped kids in my life all at once. Like every corner, everywhere I looked around was kids with handicap. Like they were in wheelchairs, they were walking with the limp or with crutches. But then here was me. I couldn't even know how to walk or stand up, let alone. So I have no room to talk. But I was literally shocked because as a little girl, when you see somebody different from you, you're kind of like surprised, right? You're like, why do they look like that? Or why can't they walk, right?
Mhm.
But where the orphanage was, like, it was a rehab center, and 100% of the kids were all handicapped. Had a lot of them had a disabilities and polios and all kinds of disabilities. But then there's a 80% of the kids, which was 100% were all, handicapped, but 80% of the kids had a family, and there's about 20% of the kids did not have a family. And I was one of those kids, was handicapped and did not have a family. And so it was really kind of, more like a rehab center, but people lived there. Like we lived there day and night. So the kids that had a family got to go home on the weekends or sometimes during the summer. And those that didn't have a family, we didn't go anywhere. We just never saw the lights outside of the orphanage. So that's where I grew up. And age 14, I was adopted by an American family. They wanted to adopt a special needs child, and which I belong to that category because even though I learned to walk, it took me 2 or 3 years in the orphanage. They didn't have any special occupational therapy or anything like that, but the one of the orphanage workers staff was showing me what to do. Just hang on to the rail, stand up, and then sit down and stand up and sit down. That was my thing every day. Once I got feel very comfortable doing that, then hanging onto the rail, and then next step is to take a step. That's how I learned to walk. It took me 2 years. So when I took my first step, it wasn't like my kids when they took their first step was like a year and a half or 2 years old, or whatever. But mine was like 6 or 7 years old. And I remember standing up and there was no chairs, nobody around me, and just standing up like this. And they were all watching me. They're like, okay, now take a step. And I'm like, no, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that the floor is going to move if I move.
Mhm.
And they says, trust me, just we saw you walking, hanging onto the rail. Now it's time for you to not hang on to anything and just take a step. I was so frightened. That was one of the frightening part in my life. Oh, no way. I don't even have anything nearby for me to hang on to in case I fall. I wanted that security, but
Yeah.
no. So anyway, so I learned to walk, and then I was adopted by an American family at age 14. And my life, I feel like I was blessed with a new opportunity and starting all over again. I was just so shocked that somebody wanted me the way I was. Like, I had a hair lip, I had to fix up, and I really didn't look pretty at all. And my self-confidence was gone. My trust with people in the world was negative 100. The reason is because my sister promised me that she would stay with me in that orphanage, and she lied to me and saying that she had to go to the bathroom and she never came back. So my trust was gone, my self-confidence. I didn't even know the word of self-confidence at the time. I mean, I was just a mess. So come to America, learning everything about there is to know how to survive, how to trust people again, how to love again, how to belong to a family, learning the language, and just go on and on. Just so many parts to my life that I didn't have a normal teenage life
Sure.
compared to what my kids went through their teenage life. I know that because I raised the kids. If I wasn't a mother, I wouldn't have nothing to compare and I
Mm.
wouldn't have known, right?
Mm.
But basically, I didn't learn to walk. I think it's because I didn't have that proper nurturing, touching, hugging, encouragement, just all that, you know, human. needs.
Right.
So anyway, so then I just did exactly what my parents told me to do, like study hard, get a good grades, get a scholarship, and go to college and get a degree or learning something, and then you could get a job and then just pay your bills. That's it. And I
Right.
said, okay, it's very difficult for me not knowing the language, but I will do my best. So I took like extra English classes every summer. I would take a class, and I did exactly that. Landed up as my dream job, being a certified medical assistant for 33 years. Every day I was so excited to go to work. Every morning, like night before, I was excited to go to bed just so that I could go to work next morning. And in fact, I love that job so much. It wasn't like a job to me, but it was like, helping people, working with people, but I got paid. And it was like a bonus. You know what I mean? I did consider it as like a paycheck, but it was like a bonus to me because they were paying me for what I love doing. But I found myself, married and divorced after 14 years with the domestic violence, and then found myself becoming a single mom and raising three kids. And I thought, I need to have more money to meet their needs, their school supplies and things like that, just basic necessity. I wasn't even talking about vacations or anything like that at all. There's no money, zero money for that. Anyway, and I realized and I thought, you know what? If I stay at my dream job, no matter how much I love my job, I've got to have enough money to survive. To me, money is like a tool. Like when we have a tool to build a house, variety of different tools that we have to build a house, we could
Hmm.
build a decent house
Hmm.
and faster if we have a better tools, right? For
Right.
example, like a screwdriver, doing it with hand versus, automatic, just so much faster. And
Right.
so I realized having a money is like a tool, and I must have tool, and I must have more tools. And I have to have more tools to have a financial freedom. I want to be able to be my own boss and be just go on vacations as long as I want, as much as I want. I don't have to wait till once a year or once every 5 years, and not just for 10 days, but how about 30 days or 6 months? You have to think big, right?
Right.
But I had no money in my savings or my checking account. And I remember my doctor and I were talking about it. I was working for doctors for 33 years as a CMA, and we're having a conversation. And I have to tell him, I said, you know what? I'm planning on retiring. And he says, well, me too. And he says, when are you gonna retire? And I said, oh, within a year. And he's like, what? Can you afford it? Nope. Do you have saved up any money? Nope. I mean, all my answers were no to the questions that he's asking me because he and I, we were like 2 weeks apart in ages, we were
Mhm.
in our 50s, And so, but I said no, but I was scared inside of me as I was
Sure.
saying no to him and saying, no, I don't have any money to retire. No, I don't have any savings to retire. I have nothing to retire. I was very scared, but I didn't tell him. But all I said was answering him honestly and saying, do you have, nope. Do you have, nope, nope, no. Everything was no. But I didn't stay at that, my fear long. I
Right.
felt it, but I didn't let that drive me, right?
Right.
My mindset shifted at the moment. I thought, you know what? There's a people out there that are making money. But I knew that if I stayed at my dream job
Hmm.
until I'm able to retire, meaning age-wise, like I have to retire at a certain age,
Hmm.
I knew that I was going to continue to stay broke. So there's no way that I'm going to do that, continue to work for next, 10, 20 years.
There's so much in that story. The fact that you persevered to learn how to walk. What a dramatic story. It's like you can still remember that moment. And then so you find yourself in the US, you learn the language, you get through school, you go to college, you find yourself in a situation as a mom, as a single parent. You have been through so much. What shifted for you in your mind? Maybe it was just providing for your children to say, I'm going to go get this. I'm going to go do this. And what really fueled you? to keep moving forward despite the fear?
Well, I came to a place where, as much as I love my job and I was grateful for, the job that I was landed it with, but I am tired and exhausted with my life. There's a difference between like I love what I'm doing, I
Mhm.
love my kids, but I was exhausted working for somebody and living in their terms, not getting enough of my dream income. So that's basically it. And so I
Yeah,
thought, because of there's so people out there that are making money, I'm gonna be one of those person. I'm gonna
right,
make money in my own terms, and
right.
I'm gonna be financially free, and I'll be able to provide more than enough for my kids, meaning like we could go on vacations because when I was working, like I had a 2 weeks time off, paid vacation, but
Hmm.
I didn't have any money to go on vacations. So
Right,
my vacation is at home. We
right,
went on picnics and I cleaned, I did a lot of projects because I didn't have any money to just to go anywhere
right,
with my kids. So I thought I gotta have more than just that in my life. And so
right,
yeah, I shifted, but for me to really take actions is starts with my mindset.
right,
Instead of saying, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I don't know where to start, I don't know who I need to talk to. I don't know. I haven't done anything. I did not go there. I did not have that kind of conversation with my mind because most people do that. Most
right,
people say, okay, but my kids and people that are around me would have those kind of conversations. So you don't have to worry about having your own conversation. They tell you about it. They bring up those
right.
conversations and say, Mom, you're so good at this. Like, what are you gonna do? Like my friends will say, Sun Young, like you don't know, you're so good at what you're doing. And everybody loves you, your patients, your doctors loves you. I know that. But they're bring me those conversations. And so we gotta remember we don't have to have those conversations. They
Right.
they come to us anyway.
Oh, I know.
It's so true, right?
It is so true. And then we replay the conversations in our head and
Right.
allow it to keep us stuck.
Right, exactly. And so
Right.
you have to really have this a strong mindset. It's okay, I'm sick and tired of the situation that I'm in. I want to provide more for me and for my people, my kids, and for people that are around me, right? So then I have to take a leap. I have to take actions. And so not only I have to take actions of, putting on different mindset, like, I was playing this old CD that it was implanted. And so I can't do anything. You're no good. You're an orphan. Nobody
Hmm.
really wants you. Because when I was growing up, I was really like introvert and I was very shy. I don't dare to say anything to anybody because I thought they were just going to make fun of me, which there's times where they bullied me because,
Yeah.
I looked funny, I looked different from them, and
Hmm.
so like I had a outside appearance that people look at me as like, oh, you look very different. And so kids would just so mindset, it was like, okay, I must put like a new mindset, new CD in my mind, my brain to think differently. And that brings also to act differently. As long as you take actions, so we put ourselves like opportunity of thinking differently, and then we
Hmm.
also put ourselves into an opportunity where we take actions. That's the only way things gonna happen. All this negative mindset, the people that are around me, that's gonna come at me. So we don't need to go there ourselves because they bring it on to us,
They
That's
do.
kind of interesting, right?
They do. Yep. But in the end, you did take some actions and you
Yes,
found options trading. So
yes,
tell us about that and talk about your miracle system and
yeah.
how it makes your trading experience different.
Oh, very different. Yes. And so when I wanted to retire and I set a goal and doctor says when? Within a year. So conversation was in 2014, I was going to retire. That was our conversations. 2015, year later, exactly, I retired. And I only had a $10. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I mean,
Right.
I was like, it's like, okay, I can't pay my bills. Can you wait till I get paid? Nope, world's not going to wait for you, obviously. And so, but my doctor was on vacations actually. And so I really stuck by my goal. And so I didn't want to wait till he came back from vacations or anything. It was my goal. So December 2015, I happened to like I was training people, training kids, the students that came, out of the medical assisting school, and I was training them to, work with doctors. And so this one girl was happened to be like training with me at the time, like in, I don't know, like in October, August, September, October, in that month. And I told her, I said, hey, there's going to be a job opening. You may want to apply for this. But nobody knew it. My doctor was out of vacation. And my supervisor didn't even know either. But I was adamant about keeping my goal. I want to retire within a year. So I did that. And everybody was shocked. It's like, you, you're going to be kidding me. You're not going to. So, yeah, I'm going to retire now. And then I told this girl, so you may want to apply for my job. They didn't even have a time to like post my job, my position. That's how I was like, I'm going, right? I'm not going to take any excuses. I'm not going to look for
Mhm.
any excuse. My goal is within a year. It's within a year. So I retired in 2015. But of course, I was preparing myself. We always have to, like, I tell my kids, like, before you get in, even though you're working, before you get a new job, you have to prepare yourself and before you quit. And so I was, getting educations and I thought I was going to be a real estate, agent, whatever. But when I went to the seminar for real estate, and they talked about the option trading. And I said, what the heck is option trading? I have never heard about it. Nobody talked about it in my circle. I never heard about it. And so I was kind of curious, like, what is it? And they're like, well, you could get into making money with the options, with the, stock market. And I said, oh, really? And I knew about the stock market because my doctor would always talk about buying and selling stocks, but it was over my head. I never had any money. And so I remember he always talked about it with the drug reps came and talked to him about the new drugs or whatever. And they always ask him and say, Dr. So-and-so, what stock are you buying? What stocks are you selling? Like, what's going on? That's the only stock market conversation that I have ever heard. But
Mm.
he never discussed about how he makes money. He just said buy and sell stocks. And I thought, okay, but I knew that it was over my head. I didn't have any money. So when options trading conversation was introduced to me, and I thought, wow, you could have a very, very little money and you could still get into a stock market. Let me look into it. So when they told me about it, and I said, what does it take? And it goes, well, you got to pay money to learn and you got to have a knowledge about the computer. And I said, I don't have neither one of those. I have no money to pay for courses, and I don't know. I hate computer actually. I don't like computers at all. So everything was like against my odds.
Right.
And I said, oh my gosh. So then I pursued the real estate investors. After I retired, and would go to auctions and looking at different properties because I didn't have any money, but looking at properties and things like that, and it didn't cost me any money. But then also that took me away from my goal. I wanted to stay home. When I wanted to retire, I want to stay home and I want to make money from home and not go out of the home. So that didn't really line with my goal. So I thought, okay, the option trading, I could do that at home, even though there was obstacles, but I'm willing to learn because it lined with my goal. I want to stay home and I could do that. And so I pursued learning, and I had to get a loan to pay for my option trading class. My husband and we did it together because we were going to retire at about the same time. And so, and then when I actually read, so I started learning about 2015, end of 2014, 2015. I was learning, taking classes and things like that. And then when I retired in 2015, in December, January 1st, 2016, I decided to really study what I've learned. And I took on as a hobby because after you retire, you want to stay busy, you want to do something fun. And I thought, what if there's so many people that does hobbies? It costs them a lot of money, like fishing and hunting, it costs a lot of money to do their hobbies. And
Hmm.
I thought to myself, like, why don't I do this? And it doesn't cost me any money because I could practice virtual money, fake money. They give you that $200,000 worth of fake money to practice. And I thought, I think I'm gonna just do this as a hobby, and I don't have to use any of my money. It's a perfect storm. But again, challenge was like I had to learn to do things in the computer.
Hmm.
And, I have to be tech savvy and everything. And so everything that you want to do, there's always obstacles, there's always things,
Sure.
but how far, what are you willing to do?
Hmm.
So I studied, and then I thought, with the fake money, I was doing very well. And I remember telling my husband, saying, oh, I made like 50,000 this week. I was like, what if this is real? What if I could do this for real? And so after practicing, and that's when I came up with the unique miracle system. Because while I was studying it, and when I was starting with I did start with the 20,000, even though they have that, but I studied different things. Like, what if I start with $100? What if I start with the $2,000? Different budgets to study this, And then when I came up and I was making so much money, and I thought, okay, I'm going to use this in real life. What if I set myself a goal? Like if I want to make like 99,000 to 100,000 a year, how much do I have to make a month or a week or a day?
Hmm.
I broke down to small steps, and that's my unique miracle system. You got to have a goal, but you got to make it so that you're not overwhelmed and you're not keeping yourself like all stressed, right?
Hmm.
And so like one day of the week, like I make like 30,000, and that was like my week goal or month goal. Then I'm gonna say, okay, I could, I don't have to work so hard, or because I already made my goal. And
Hmm.
so if I lose some days, I don't have to worry about it because I already made my monthly goal. And so my system is just so relaxing. It's not something that you have to look at the computer 24/7. You could just set your trays and you could go off and do whatever, go out to lunch and do golf and do other things, go on vacations and things. And that's the beauty of my unique miracle system.
Wow.
And it's not studying a lot of fancy charts, just only studying like certain things, like maybe 4 or 5 things that you gotta do
Hmm.
to maintain and make good money. And so I could spend like 2 minutes in setup, and then like maybe a next day I make $30,000. Or maybe within an hour I make $5,000. I could take $500 into 5,000 in 2 weeks, or maybe even 1 hour. Just but the difference is like I work with my clients with the live trading. I don't give them a bunch of videos to watch. I
Mm.
work with them one-on-one and say, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And I'm going to go into a trade with the option trading, doing Boeing. So I want to pick this, strike prices. And so I want you to do exactly what I do. And so they get the same result as what I get.
Wow, that's really interesting.
That's the very different about me because I don't learn with watching videos. I learn hands-on.
Gotcha.
That's how I teach my clients hands-on. And so
Hmm.
like I'm taking a step with the right foot. I
Hmm.
want you to take a step with the right foot, same
Hmm.
time. So I do it when the market is open. I'm really, really happy the way how I crafted my option trading training
Hmm.
for my people, my
Hmm.
clients, because they're very happy.
Yeah. It's just really amazing that you went from no plan, but you knew this is just what you had to do, to essentially learning how to walk again
Yes,
financially.
that's
And
right.
I think that there's such a correlation between learning to walk when you were 7 and then this new step towards retirement and financial freedom and figuring it out, a system that worked for you and gave you
Yes.
the life you wanted, that, like you said, you didn't have to sit and at your computer all day and
Yeah.
and deal
It's
with
a,
it. I mean, it gives us so much possibility and so much permission to,
yeah.
that's what this podcast is all about. Talk about how this new freedom has changed your life and
Oh
how,
boy.
yeah, I mean, and just because I think so many people, and I don't blame them, I used to be one of those people who just thought that a different life was for everybody else, not for me. So
Yeah.
how has that changed?
You have to own it, basically. You have to say, you know what? I can or I will. Nobody's gonna come to
Yeah.
nobody's gonna come to me and say, Sun Young, you had such a unfortunate life and you missed out a lot and you weren't privileged about living your life with your parents and whatnot. So here it is.
Right.
No, we have to allow ourselves and say, I'm gonna go get it. I don't
Right.
know what it is, but I'm gonna get it.
Hmm.
So the life having that financial freedom was just amazing because, for example, when I was working, I mean, this is the so example. Like my daughter was in Japan because she was married in military.
Mm.
And she says, Mom, she knew that I grew up as an orphan, and so it was just like, Mom, it's like, I know that you have never been to Korea. And since we're stationed in Japan, if you could come and see me and we could spend 2 weeks, that you could take 2 weeks off. Like, yeah, I got 2 weeks time off. So we could come here and then we could fly to like a Korea like in very, very cheap, like $200 from Japan to Korea. And we could go to your country where you came from. We could see. And
Hmm.
that sounded so wonderful. And I said, yes, what an opportunity, right? And they were just going to be there like 4 years, with the
Hmm.
military. So I asked my boss, I asked my supervisor, hey, I have a great opportunity. My daughter's in Japan, and I do have a 2 weeks time off. So can I take my time off, take a vacation and go see my daughter, and then I could go to my Korea, my country. And you know what she said? You know what? Just give me a minute and let me just see who could cover you for 2 weeks, the time that you need time off, right? And she came up with an answer next day. She says, sorry, I know you have a paid time off, 2 weeks, but nobody could cover your doctor. I have nobody to cover your shift. So right there and then I thought to myself, I no longer want to work for somebody else where they're in charge of when I could take the time off, how long, you know
Right.
what I mean? And
Yep.
so when I gained this financial freedom, first thing like when I did was like I went to Italy because my husband is Italian. We
Hmm.
went to his country visit for 1 month. And then like a couple years later, like I went to my country and I stayed there for 1 month,
Yeah.
not 2 weeks, my own terms. And I was able to pay for my vacations, go on a first class, I mean, I'd never done the first class before. I was able to do that. And I was able to withdraw like 20, 30,000. Like, okay, how much do we need for vacations? Okay, here it is, so withdraw, like transfer. And then come back and knowing that we spent way more than we wanted so that we could transfer again, not in debt. And I didn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I got to catch up all this work
Yeah.
that I missed out for a month. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just like
Yeah.
stress-free. Finances are there. I'm not in debt and I'm not, I don't have to report and say, oh, I got to go back and catch up all this work that I did before, because
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, I did take some times off on and off for 33 years, but not when in my term. And
Right.
I couldn't go anywhere either. I stayed home, and so it's just so different life. And
Hmm.
that's why when you crave enough for wanting to live a different lifestyle, you have to create it for yourself.
You do.
Nobody's gonna create it for you. And you can't just think about it because you can't just dream about it because you dream
Hmm.
about it, it never becomes a reality and you're not going to have that life, right?
Yeah.
And so it was just so freeing and
Hmm.
financially and emotionally and physically just really enjoying like, when I went on a vacation, I didn't have to like just sit in a Airbnb or stay with his family. So we can't do anything because it took every time, to fly here or, when I went to Korea, I didn't have any family, obviously, so I had to have an Airbnb. So I took my son and my husband. We were there for 30 days, and we didn't just sit there and do nothing because we didn't have any money. It was different. We had the money, so we could go out and splurge and go out to eat and do all,
Hmm.
do a lot of excursions and things. It's just I
Right.
cannot say the difference of life that I didn't even really know. I just thought I gotta be financially free. That was my goal. But
Hmm.
to have all those things come along with it, it
Hmm.
was just like amazing. It was just
Yeah.
like, wow. And so
Yeah.
you have to really create it yourself and you have to go for it. But how bad do you want it? If you don't take actions, then you're
Right.
gonna stay where you are. Like,
Right.
for example, like my doctor, he's still working at the same place. He's still
Really?
working. I've been retired in next year, like next month, like December, Yeah, like 2025. This is 25. I was retired. I've been retired like 10
10
years
years
now.
ago.
Yeah, 10 years,
Wow.
and he's still working. And he still talks about like retiring in a couple years. And my son goes to, I mean, not my son, my husband goes to see him
Oh.
yearly, check up, yearly
Hmm.
physical. And he still talks to me. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna retire in a couple of years, and it's only been 10 years. That's the
Gosh.
difference. I mean, but the thing is, it's like that system that I came up with. Like, for example, like I teach my kids, my husband, when he retired 2 years later, and I took his $164,000 of his retirement for 34 years for the government. I turned that into $604,000, over half a million in 11 months, not 11 years. If it was 11 years, it's still good money, right? Like
Right.
11 months.
Sure. That's
Yeah,
higher than
11 months.
interest rates.
Yeah, 11 months. And I taught my son and I gave him his $5,000 because he was going to graduate and move to California. And I said, why don't I just give you half of your, like I was going to give him 10,000. I said, why don't I give you like a 5,000 now before you graduate and do options with it, the skills that I taught you. And if you turn that around, I'll give you another half like right away so you have more money. He took that 5,000 in February. I gave to him in February, oh, like 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. He turned that into 11,000. 11,000. So I had to give him another, 5,000 to him.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he took a picture. It's like, you have to prove to me, you have to show me. So he took a
Yeah.
picture of his account and said,
Mm.
look, Mom, I made 11,000. Now you owe me other half. I'm like, yep, you're right. So the unique miracle system is real and I use it today. And I always, continue to make it better as our
Hmm.
market moves, up and down. And
Sure.
my system is where you make money when the market is up. You make money when the market is down,
Hmm.
not only when the market goes up.
Ah, gotcha.
It's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
it's like I could make it up and down just as so when market is down, I'm not gonna go, oh my gosh, It's like,
Yeah.
yes, because I know what I'm doing. It's a system that I'm using, system that I created, the system that I'm using, like I use today. The diff
Repeatable. Yeah, you've taught others.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
love it. I mean, your story is so inspiring, and you've given us so much permission to think of ourselves differently, that we deserve more, that there is a different life for us out there should we have the courage to take the first step.
yeah.
So for any mom that's listening who's just feeling really overwhelmed and discouraged like you did at one point, what would you say to her to help her, hold on to a new belief?
You have to find something that aligns with your goal. So in other words, like when I was single mom, I was working 40 hours at my CMA job, and then I was selling vacuums at night, or I was cleaning people's houses. I was never home. And so a lot of people still out there is like that.
Right.
And my advice would be like, you may want to do something that you could do it at home that makes
Hmm.
money, right? And if I would have had this kind of opportunity where I get to practice with the fake money, like, wow, I didn't even know that. So if this is something that you're interested in learning, why
Hmm.
not? Like
Right.
open up a, account with any kind of trading companies. There's like Charles Schwab, there's a Thinkorswim platform, there's a trader, there's so many. You can look it up, Google, and say,
Right.
what are the companies that are, can I do options? Because
Hmm.
options are so much cheaper than buying and selling
Stocks.
stocks, so
Yeah.
much cheaper. And so, like I said, you could take $50 and turn that into 500 in
Mm.
even like 2 weeks to 3 weeks or even 4 weeks. Where can you find that opportunity that you
Right.
could take that and you get to practice? You don't even have to use any of your money. And so you could do that on the side. And then once you do that well, then you could maybe eventually, retire. Right?
Hmm.
But while you're practicing those things, instead of taking up another job,
Hmm.
like I did, like 2 or 3 jobs and away from my kids. Why
Hmm.
don't you like maybe learning something like that, especially if you're like a computer savvy? Because
Right.
I hate computers. And so if
Yeah.
I could do it, I mean, seriously, everybody says this like if I could do it, you could do it, but no. you have to line with the goal. And it's like, does that make sense to me? Like I said, I was going to be a real estate agent,
Hmm.
real estate investor, which I did that also. I had enough money to buy a lot of real estate properties and buy and hold and sell and things like that too. So
Hmm.
that's something else that I do because I don't have to look at it. I just, like I could look online and say, okay, I want this property and I bought it. And then it just that raises, the prices goes up on the
Hmm.
properties and I sell it, holding
Hmm.
on to it for a few years and sell it. I mean, so there's so many different things, but we have to have a tool. But you have to line yourself and say, okay, do I want to do this or do I want to continue to physically work outside and be, to make a paycheck and exhaust it? And you can't do that in your 60s and 70s and 80s. But you could do it just like checking your emails. You could do that, practice, Maybe you practice for like maybe a month, consistently every single
Hmm.
day for a month. Give
Hmm.
yourself like a discipline,
Right.
and that tenacity and the motivation and say, I'm not doing this for anybody else, but for me. I'm just
Right.
curious. Because the
Right.
curiosity kind of brought me where this was. It was like, I'm gonna take this as like my hobby.
Yeah.
What if, and I've practiced and I thought, what if this is a real? What if,
Right.
and so like you could take a loan, like I took a home equity loan because I didn't have any money. So I took a home equity loan to start. And
Mm.
then I was able to, I mean, made more than enough to just pay all back my loan and everything. And so you gotta start somewhere. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's a good debt and there's a bad debt, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a good actions, there's bad actions. So you have to really like, okay, where can I like people don't have any money? Like oh say some months you get like three paychecks. You're used to living with the two paychecks. Why not take that third paycheck and
Right.
use that money to do option trading?
Yeah,
Invest.
it seems like you can have a small time commitment rather
Yeah,
than commuting. You don't have to, it's not all or nothing.
yeah,
You can do a very small commitment financially and
yeah.
compound that and even practice. So, I mean, it just sounds really, you've piqued my interest.
It really is because this is something that, and then this is like why I'm talking to you,
Mhm.
my money's working for me. Like they
Right.
said, while you're sleeping, your money's working and stuff. And
Yeah.
so why not, instead of like paying money for your babysitters, for your
Hmm.
kids to go to babysitters, they're expensive now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you look at all the costs, like, gas,
Right.
and maintaining your car and the babysitters, and then
Hmm.
you gotta take all that expenses where you do this at home, like, okay, you're saving gas money,
Hmm.
car maintenance and then babysitting money and all that. Because I was gone like, 10, 12, 13 hours a day, 6 days a
Yeah.
week. And if
Yeah.
I would have spent all that energy, I already have my 40 hours a week work.
Hmm.
And on my day off, instead of working somewhere else, if I would have spent and practiced and then really and done this, I mean, man, it would have been a life-changing thing much earlier,
Yeah.
right? So the longer you wait, the longer it's gonna get you the results.
Yeah.
Like you can't be afraid. Nobody's stopping you. Only person that is stopping you from living a different life is you.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It is.
Nobody's gonna come to you and say, don't do that, Mom. I mean, literally, like people say, Mom, don't do that. Like, you love it. Like, I know I do. But I have a different, like, I wanna have more.
Right.
I wanna
And you
provide
deserve
more.
more. We all do. Everybody listening to this podcast does. And we were talking before we recorded, that is such an obstacle. And yeah, for you to find that place that you deserve this life and created it for yourself is so inspiring. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing so much possibility. I am sure listeners are going to want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing in your system. So tell them where they can do that.
Sure. I have a 3-day live event coming up in February.
Okay.
Well, we're going to dive in and I'll be able to teach them actual option trading. We're going to
Okay.
take like a whole day and
Uh-huh.
learning about that. And we're also going to talk about different ways to make money, like I said. But money is not everything, but money solves a lot of problems.
Right. And
It's a
like you
tool.
said, it's a tool.
It's a tool. It's
I
a tool.
mean, it helps me employ women in other countries that wouldn't have an opportunity.
Yeah,
or, provide not only for my children, but help, those that I work with provide for their families. So
exactly.
it is
It's
so
a
much
ripple
more.
effect. It's a ripple
Right.
effect, right? Domino effect, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But basically, it's I used to think like, oh, I want more money. It made us think like, oh, I'm being greedy. No, we have to change that mindset. We're not being greedy. I want to retire and I want to live in a big mansion and like, no, the way, how women, we are built to like serve people, right?
Hmm.
And one of the ways that we could serve is like we could create, find a ways to gather more tools, which is money, right?
Right.
Make more money, more tools. And then we could help people just all over the world, you
Yeah.
know? And that's a part of serving, right? But
Right.
we have to have it ourselves before we could give. So like whenever we go on a vacations and we fly and the first thing the stewardess, what did they do? They're like, in case of emergency, this is how you put your mask on, but you must put your mask on first before you could help other people, save their life. We have to live that kind of mindset with our life. Like we have to learn, we have to do all these things for ourselves so that we know how to teach other people. Because I could talk about it because I learned it, I heard it, but if I don't live it, if I don't practice this and not, because if I don't do it, I don't know the results.
Yeah.
Then I can't teach people. I can't talk about the results. So you have to literally live it and get the results, live the life so that you can say, you know what, this is real. And I've done this for other people and their life is changed. It's real, right? But how bad do you want to change your life? Like
Right.
either you hate your life, but if you're okay with just living okay, I have a lot of friends that are living life just okay. That's their life. That's fine. But you want more, you want to provide more, you want to share, you want to serve more, you gotta do more for yourself.
Yeah. I love that. And we'll leave links in the show notes where our
Yeah.
listeners can connect with you and be part of your live event.
Yeah,
Um,
look for the links that is gonna come within the
yeah.
next couple of months. Right now with
Yeah.
holidays,
Yeah.
people are too crazy about getting
Yeah.
together. But
Yeah.
once first part of January, I think I'm gonna
Mhm.
start taking the ads out and it's gonna be so good because it's gonna really transform your life in so many different ways, not only financially, but how you are meant to be in all like relationship with other people, financial with I just can't because I just can't my energy is coming from the results that I'm getting.
Yeah. I
That's
love that.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
So
No, that's great. It's why I started this podcast to give moms that ability to be the mother they want to be and live their life on their own terms by thinking differently. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your day job all at once. It doesn't mean, but there is more for you if you're
yeah.
ready for it.
Well, not only that, but how are we being an example to our kids? You
Absolutely.
know,
Right.
we have to really be a good example. For in other words, like when I filed for divorce, for example, is okay, by not divorcing my husband was a domestic violence, like I'm showing my kids this is okay.
Right.
And this is how life is. So you have to put up with it.
Right.
No, I don't want to. There's a different life that I want to show to my kids.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you're being as a mother, it's like, what am I showing my kids? How am I raising my kids? Not just providing, but
Hmm.
with our thinking process, it's all ties into it. And that
Yeah.
they're gonna learn, they're gonna look up to you. And so you have to have enough of self-respect to say, I deserve more. And that
Hmm.
means when you start doing that and the kids gonna respect you, they're gonna see that respecting for yourself. And then it's gonna also show the kids, oh, I must respect myself the way my mother is respecting herself. So it's a beautiful thing. So
It
I'm
is.
so happy to be in your podcast. I'm just so
Me
excited.
too. I have enjoyed this conversation and learning about your story and delighted to, just shine a light on it to inspire others. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Oh, thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity. Because I'm learning every time I share my stories because there's always like aha moments, right? Aha
Oh,
moments.
right.
And so
Yeah.
we are created to be in a community and learning and sharing with each other. So and you
Right.
have that perfect spot being a podcaster. And so thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.